there was a distinctly chilly feel to the air in Manchester. I mean, just the body language itself, people talk about PDA, a public display of affection. This is the total opposite, isn't it? Now, the details of what actually happened have emerged later on in the day, or we believe have actually happened. It would appear to be something of a misunderstanding. Jose Mourinho upset at an Instagram that Paul Pogba sent out, apparently laughing after Manchester United had got beat last night by Derby in the Carabao Cup. However, subsequently, it turns out he sent it out during the first half, and it's all something of a misunderstanding. Now, be that as it may, Craig, what do those pictures tell you?
Look, first of all, I was surprised. Look, it's very rare these type of images come out of Manchester United. It used to be regular because, you know, a lot of training grounds down the years as well, like a lot of the clubs, even I was at, you know, cameras, you couldn't keep them out because they'd be over fences, they had access to, you know, like even I remember off the top of my head being at Newcastle, they were all campgrounds. So every time you trained, there'd be journalists everywhere and, you know, with the pictures. So you always had to be on guard in any normal training session. But due to the facilities now there's nowhere for him to go, so they have to let him in on certain days. I think Manchester United is, you know, of course, obviously Champions League, you have to give them an hour or so, but I think it's around about once a month with, you know, the likes of Premier League, that type of stuff. So for it to be on that day does surprise me. But at the same time, due to what's going on with Pogba, due to what's going on with Mourinho, their relationship, it seems to be very frosty, at least, to say the least, sorry. And this moment, I watched the game yesterday and I thought, listen, Derby were better, deserved the win. But I could see him listen, I knew it wasn't when it came out saying he was after the game, no, because I seen Pogba and all that leave before the game finished. So I knew that wasn't the case. But at the same time, looking about, you know, I can understand Mourinho having a word because that would have set me as a manager. I have no interest in you Instagramming and sending, you know, you can do it in your own spare time, but when in your game, all right, you might not be playing, but your players are, you have to show them respect. But it was sort of the reaction.
So even if it wasn't delayed, and it was during the first half, when they weren't losing, you'd still be annoyed as a manager, the fact he's sending out Instagrams as a player who's not playing that night? Yeah,
I would too. Look, I'm old-fashioned because I'm not... social media is something I'm not part of, and I don't want to be part of. I'm not in the in, and listen, that's the way I want to live my life. I'm very private on how I want to go about things. But at the same time, I have to be, you know, even as players, you have to be very careful. Listen, Pogba's, you know, I think he's got something like 28 million followers. You know, he's a global star, and he uses it to his...
Which benefits Man U as well.
Of course it does, but their relationship there is just... It's clearly not right. It's, you know, and even some of his interview after the game against Wolves, look, whether he should say it or not, you know, is up for listen, players will sometimes have to say, and sometimes after games, not the best time to talk. But also, I'm looking at Pogba and I'm like, well, hold on a second. You don't have to stop in that media area.
In the mix zone.
In the mix zone. Voluntary. You can walk through, which I walk through plenty of times, which, you know, Jeff, I very rarely stopped.
Yes.
You don't have to. Yeah, no, I still wouldn't. That was even more so. But some of the comments he made, then it looks personal. It looks like he wants to send a message that it's not me, it's the manager. But also at the same time, I'm like, well, hold on a second. You were at fault for the goal. Don't try and deflect. You've got to take responsibility for yourself as well. I would have thought, in me personally, if I was Pogba, I would just walk straight through, get your head down. Concentrate on yourself. You need to put in better performances. Whether or not the manager suits the way you play, you're playing for Manchester United. Concentrate on that. Get on with that. And I just feel just the way it went and the way that looked, it's just... you've got to be concerned.
I mean, Danny, do you agree? It just looked, in terms of unity at any club, it just looked absolutely awful. You're talking daggers, aren't we? The way they're staring.
It doesn't look good. I think in isolation it wouldn't be a big deal. It's magnified because of everything that's gone on before. Now, there's some very simple boundaries that should have been in place. The manager dictates the rules of the players regarding social media. Every club I've ever, especially in the latter bit of my career, you know, look, Pogba's surprised. He went up and embraced him. Mourinho's not really talking to him directly there. It's a little sheepish comment. If it's a misunderstanding in isolation, this isn't a big deal. It shouldn't have been done with the press there. But every club, or the last couple of clubs I played at, when social media became huge, the rules were set. This is what you can tweet about. This is what you can't put on Insta. Blah blah. You know, it's there. It's set. It should be. It shouldn't need this quibbling. Now, social media is changing the way players relate to supporters. It's a good thing in many ways. And Pogba, the package when they got Pogba would have been based on earning a fortune from selling his shirts and all this, you know, the other stuff. So they have to encourage him to do it to create the player and the money that United get because of that. But there are simple boundaries that should be kept regarding tweets or Insta about matches, players' performances, stuff like that. If you take away that for a second, Pogba talking about the manager's tactics. Sometimes a player, you're talking to the press and you get cornered by questions and you say something that later you can kind of go, well, didn't really mean it to come out like that. But there's too many incidents now with Pogba and Mourinho. So there is more there than meets the eye, I think. I would suggest that Pogba needs to quickly focus on his own performances. You can't start talking about the manager when you play for Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. You've got to have respect for the club, respect for the supporters. If he was playing brilliantly every week and bang at it, he can start talking a bit more. At the moment, he can't, because he's not playing well enough to have that much opinion.
But do you think he wants to focus, or do you think he wants to agitate? I mean, he may be the innocent party in this particular incident, but do you think he wants to agitate because he wants away?
I think there's one small thing we don't know, and I think we can surmise that he's doing it for himself and maybe to get away. There is part of me that thinks, I've been in a situation when I was captain at Fulham where some of the players come to you with a problem, or they're moaning a lot about the tactics, or about, you know, you have to go to that hotel and that and do this and do that and do that. And your job as the captain is to sit down with the other lads and explain, or go to the management with the problems and try and keep everything happy and amicable. Now, is he saying things about the tactics? Is he questioning Jose in the dressing room or whatever on behalf of everyone else? Or is he doing it all for him? I don't know.
But surely it can't be right ever to question the manager's tactics in public.
No, you can't do it in public.
Even if you've got the whole dressing room behind you.
No, you can't do it in public.
No, not in public, no.
You can't do it in public. You can, you know, if you have something to say, you say it there. You say it to the manager. And even, like, as players as well, I was very... that was one of my biggest... What would get to me the most is if I heard players then talking even in the shower when he had their chance to talk. Because sometimes the manager says, anyone else got something to say? And if it went quiet and then they thought it was upon them, then they can say something when they had that opportunity, then I would just...
and they didn't say.
I would lose it then. It would be like, hold on a second, I don't want to hear it now. You had your opportunity to go and say it to the manager. And now you ain't. And I remember even pulling a player who went to the media talking about certain issues, but he didn't even say it then. And when he came in the next day, I was first and foremost at him.
I'll make you right.
You know, having a right go at him about that. And look, I don't believe anything should get aired publicly. And I don't. And listen, this is me as a. If I'm not rating you as a player, and you're playing for me, I would always have your back in the media. Even though you're not really going to play for me, we're not quite getting on, I would never let outside know about that. That's between us two. I'll tell you that.
But Mourinho was brilliant. If you think back, this is the strange thing with Mourinho. All the best managers I've played under give back your players. And if they've got a problem with you, they tell you. And they speak to you and they give you an opportunity to, you know, to put it right. Mourinho always used to defend his players, never talk badly about his players. The first time he did it was... I think it was definitely Chelsea, maybe Hazard was one of the first ones, publicly criticised. Mourinho had the bad season. And then it got like dominoes. He was going after people. United, he's done it with Shaw. He's much more... Maybe the success he's had gave him the freedom to be able to think, you know what, I'll change the way I'll always protect them. I'll actually dig them out a bit instead of taking it all on the chin. Whether that's right or wrong is a different debate. But players now, I think, more than when we played, and it's not when we played all those years ago, but because of the finances, because of the contracts now, because of the change, players can quite easily say, well, even in my day, I've seen players turn around to a manager and say, you can make me train with the kids, you can shout me all you want, but I'll be here longer than you.
Yeah. The power, shift of power. I mean,
and that's just the way it is.
Just going back to these pictures, the extraordinary things here, what I'd like to know from you two is, first of all, I mean, the cameras are only in there for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Could Jose Mourinho have waited till he's away from the cameras, do that? Or, by the look of the pictures, it's the first time he's seen Paul Pogba, and he's just said, you know, what's on his mind?
Look, of course he could have waited. I don't believe it's...
Is it staged?
I wouldn't say it's staged either. I don't believe this is bad. He probably just had a comment to say, well, what are you doing on Instagram while we're playing?
He's not, maybe he's not thought it through.
No, he probably hasn't. That was on it, like, that was... It looks to me, that was eating him up this morning. And as soon as he seen him, he was just going to say it. It wasn't like...
Yep.
It was just a comment.
But actually, let's play devil's advocate. You know, you go in training you're a bit of breakfast, you don't go in and get trainers and go out. You're there an hour before or 45 minutes, whatever. Mourinho could have pulled him inside the training.
If it was eating away at me that much, I would have...
The more I think about it and see it, and that's the second time I've seen it, I actually think Mourinho's done that on purpose. I don't think it is flippant. He's too clever.
Yeah, he is.
You know, I spoke to people that work with Mourinho and who eulogise about him, but they eulogise about his attention to detail and always preparing things and actually knowing how he was going to deal with the press and taking away the blame from his players and things like that. So all of a sudden he's become unaware about the press and that people can't, you know, people lip read now from the press and watch people. The more I see it and the more we talk about it, I'm convinced he's done that on purpose.
Do you see this as a straightforward power play between Mourinho and Pogba? Pure and simple.
If it's a straightforward power play, there's only going to be one winner and there only should be one winner, and that's the manager.
Not if they keep losing.
No, if they keep losing, of course. Yeah, that's always going to be a problem. But listen, there's no player, and even believe it or not, there's no manager bigger than the club. Manchester United will be here. Huge club. They're the most important factor in this. Something now has to get resolved between the both of them. If you're going to keep Mourinho, and of course they haven't started great, but I don't see any reason why he shouldn't stay the whole year. And if Pogba, it looks to me from the outside that Pogba wants out. It's not working for him at Manchester United. It's not working for him under this manager. And that's why even little comments that I've heard, and this is now trying to be as honest as I can with this. To me, even the reaction there, all the little bits now he wants out, and even by his comments, by going to the media, stopping at the media, saying things that he knows is going to get his managers back up. So he knows the relationship there. He's probably thinking, well, if I upset you that much, I don't particularly like playing for you at the moment. You're not getting the best out of me, but Barcelona want me.
It's like
Juventus want me.
It's like
I've got an option to go somewhere else.
When you're younger, you have a girlfriend, and you haven't got the courage to say we're done, as in Pogba coming out and going, I want to leave. You just keep acting badly till they push you.
Didn't have the courage. I didn't have the luxury.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me so much, yeah.
Is this at all
I'm sure you were a good one in your day,
repairable?
mate. Good one in your day.
Is this at all repairable? Do you think they could sit in a room, the two of them, we're talking about a very successful player and an undoubtedly talented player, sit down and say, right, what do we both do here to make this work?
I think it's looking different. I mean, if they can do that, why didn't they do that this morning? Why is Mourinho sheepishly making comments as he runs past?
It wasn't necessarily sheepishly. It might have been...
Well, he didn't even, say, come over here, let's speak to you one-on-one, look him in the eye. He's saying it as he's kind of walking past. It's a bit like a gesture. You know, grow a pair and sit in the office one-on-one. I mean, look, there's managers I work for who would come and sit you one-on-one and you're like...
that's the last thing you want.
Last thing you want. And there's some, you got them over a barrel when you get them one-on-one because they can't do it.
Yeah.
That looked to me like Mourinho was a bit...
Who can mediate? What happens here? Who...
I think Bellas is right. I think Pogba or was it you said? You both think, I alluded to it, that he wants out.
I think Michael Carrick, maybe, due to his relationship with just recently playing, also being then on the coaching side. But I do listen, I do believe. But I look at it and you know, I know there's a lot of fuss. And I know the World Cup would have strengthened his position, but I've actually come to the conclusion now, is he really that good? Is he really this player that everyone... And I know we talk about people are saying, oh, yeah, but brilliant. Did he really have a brilliant World Cup? He was in a team that won it. And was he brilliant in the final? Yeah, he scored a goal. Modric ran circles around him. For 90 minutes, Modric had him on toast.
Well, he's better. He's better than what they've got.
Maybe I don't know. I'm still
know what you're
yet,
saying.
and I've seen him at Juventus, and they played him wide left, where he had the luxury where other players could do the job. Then he can just join in and link up with the forward and play. You know, he took up clever positions. But since he's come in central, and with France, look, I believe. Do you know what, Jeff? I believe, and Dan, you could still play now with Kante. And I'm telling you that because he is the work of two men.
I know he is, yeah.
He is that good. His energy when you haven't got the ball. And France do sit off. France are not like, you know, you can't say what attacking football, this, and this, and Manchester United. You know, all right, Manchester United, but France don't do that.
No.
They counter-attack you. They wait for their moments. They've got players like Griezmann and Mbappe. Of course, it suits them with players like that.
Yeah.
So he has to be disciplined. He's got a player who's going to cover him a lot. But like I said, I wasn't overly impressed by this World Cup, this Pogba incident of he's now a World Cup winner, he's a brilliant player, he's got to be doing this, and why is he not doing that at Manchester United? Because I'm like, I'm not sure he's capable. I think we can all do it with Kante.
I think it's a fair point. But what I would say is that, you know, in the World Cup, Deschamps is similar to Mourinho, and he's very pragmatic. You know, the way they beat Belgium and things like that. And Pogba didn't moan about that type of football then. No. But the other thing is, when I saw Deschamps pull him before the second half against Belgium, they'd run out and he pulled him back, and he'd give him a load of it. He was telling him to stay on Fellaini. And if you notice in the second half, he man-marked Fellaini. He had two unbelievable defensive headers on the 6-yard, but he nearly played centre-half in the second half, Pogba. But just while they had the words, they'd give a quick embrace after they finished the work. There was a connection there. The body language showed it. They got on. Now, I don't know whether Deschamps is a tyrant. I don't know whether he's, you know, like patting him on the back. Some managers, and Bellas knows this better than me, I've had a couple that I didn't get on with. Just clash. Other lads will speak really highly of them. You know, you've probably had it in your life. You've probably had bosses you don't like and bosses you do like. We're the same. But Pogba and Mourinho might just not quite fit. You know, people don't always get on. Even if the intention is there, you just keep grinding on each other.
With the wages Jeff earned from Sky, likes all your bosses, don't you?
What is the best?
Buy some new clubber then.
What is the best? Steady, boy, steady. It's not 2 on 1. What is the best? When players and managers clash, normally, it only ends one way, doesn't it? Quite often, but other times, it can be the manager that ends up going because of player power.
Look, it's got to end one way. It's got to end in the manager's favour. I had my own instant, and I know people talk about managers only ever falling out with one, and I had it was a big falling out. And I said
it tongue in cheek.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, I didn't, because a lot of people do believe that. Like I still speak to a lot of my managers now, and he even tried to re-sign me. A lot of them. It was just one, and he didn't get a job after that anyway, so he didn't have the opportunity to try and re-sign me. But for me, I sort of went up against him, and I actually thought I had the supporters with me.
You're talking Newcastle?
Yeah, with Newcastle with Graham Souness, yeah. I didn't like the way we were playing. I didn't like the way he was using me. I didn't like the players he was bringing in compared to where we were. I could see us going downhill very, very quick.
And do you regret that now,
Oh,
Craig?
Hugely, honestly.
Do you look back and think I was unprofessional?
I wouldn't call it unprofessional. I should have known my place.
Yeah.
I should have known my role as a player, and I should have I'm only a player. Now I have to do what's best for the manager, and what he asks me, even if I don't like it, I still have to go and do it, because it becomes a breaking point between the both of us. I should have really just shut my mouth and got on with it where I went up against it. And I learned very, very quickly as well. There's only one winner in this.
If Paul Pogba was sat there now, would you say, listen, I've been where you are, trust me, you're not going about this the right way?
But then, no, he isn't going about it in the right way, of course he isn't, but he does have Barcelona in January that he has a great chance of going to.
You sure? I mean, doesn't mean...
He does. Listen, these clubs don't go overnight. If they want you... This transfer window,
is he playing well enough to get a deal like that?
They must see something in him that I don't think he suits Barcelona. But Juventus, would they go and take him tomorrow? Of course they would. So this guy will always have options.
Dan, have you gone up against the manager?
Well, not one-on-one as such. I've had a situation where a group of we were really struggling at Fulham when Lawrie Sanchez was in charge, and we were playing in a way that didn't suit the players we had. But this was after, by the way, we had tried really hard, and he was a decent enough bloke, and he was adamant that's the way he wanted to play. Now the problem was we were playing in a way that needed lots of big, strong athletes and runners, and we had lots of small, neat and tidy footballers. And it got to a point where we were sitting in the bottom of the league, couldn't win a game, and a few of the senior boys, would have a chat or talked, and when we spoke to the hierarchy at the club, we made our feelings known. And
so you went behind his back to the chief exec and said that we've got a problem.
Well, we didn't instigate a meeting as such, but we decided to express our concerns as a small group of senior players, which I thought was the right thing to do based on the club, not me. Now, the reason I know that was with good intent was because I was aware that we could have been collateral in that, because they could have gone, hold on, he's the manager. We don't want to hear that from you. Go back under your stone, as it were. Know your place. Problem was, we haven't won a game in God knows how long, and we're sitting at the bottom of the Premier League, and we're being affected by it.
Had you tried speaking to Laurie?
Yeah. We'd tried. But look, every manager has their own views, and we tried it. I tried it, but we couldn't turn it. We couldn't do it that way. Now Roy came in, Roy Hodgson, and actually you've got to remember, it doesn't matter what a player says to the hierarchy, whether it's the owner, the chief exec. It does not matter what you say. He's still going to make the decision. That's his job. And they made the decision, not based... I don't know if they made the decision based on our information. I can only assume that. But they're in a job where they must take on all the information.
Just playing devil's advocate, though, it really sounds uncomfortable to me that a group of players would bypass the manager and go and speak to the hierarchy.
It was last-ditch attempt, really, at trying to save the season and save the club, because it wasn't about me. And as long as you know your intent is with the club at heart, as Craig said, the manager and the players will come and go. And I agree generally that if a player start skipping past the manager and go shouting your mouth off upstairs, that's wrong. But this was a situation where we were doomed. And the proof was in the pudding. We stayed up. Roy came in and we stayed up by hook or by crook. But don't get me wrong, I've got to justify this, because I have been asked twice by owners of clubs that I've been at about the manager.
That have come to you, as opposed to you
come
going
to me
them.
and said, things aren't going well, and I've backed the manager, 100% injuries or lack of form, or, this is what the players think. And I can, hand on heart, look myself in the mirror and go, every time I've been asked an opinion or given one, I've never put myself first, in my opinion. I've always put the group and the team first. And even though on one occasion in particular, I knew that one of the managers who I was backing had already expressed to me that he was looking for someone to replace me, because I was getting older. Okay. And I made him right. So as long as I agree with you generally, but I think if your intent as a player, senior player, or a group of players is for the benefit of the club moving forward, they don't have to listen to you, by the way. I think that's a good place to be. But Pogba doesn't look like he's doing that, does he? I don't think he's necessarily heading up a group of United players who are all discontent.
I think the only thing we can say with some clarity is that I don't think that this is the end of this.
It isn't the end, unfortunately, for Manchester
No.
United, isn't it? No.